herramientas que le tenemos que transmitir a nuestros socios, el expertise que tenemos en este ciclo. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, you know, this I consider to be a very core slide to share with partners because it helps frame what we do overall. This is another very key slide, which is to show the global capacity. So really important messages here are we work as one global team. I often say that we have project offices and project sites. And we have a very flexible working model in terms of the ability to scale up and scale down as needed. So this gives a sense of where we're located and that we are mindful of particularly seismic risk, but also multi-hazard risk, and that we have this really unique global capability. Another really key slide is to show the importance of grounding in experience. A lot of the people that we work with in the international development and humanitarian assistance portfolio are frontline. They're thinking about urban search and rescue. They're thinking about disaster response. And so they want to know that we're not approaching the work from a purely theoretical point of view, but that it's very much informed by experience. Another thing that's really key on this slide is this shows the depth on the seismic side. Increasingly, a lot of people are interested in multi-hazard expertise. So one way to also explain this is that we have a lot of disaster response experience, of course, the depth of expertise on the seismic side, but we do work on other hazards as well. And finally, here is another sort of core slide in terms of areas of expertise. So you could think about this almost in terms of like business lines or services that we offer that really bring together this data, community, technology, and finance point of view. So you'll see that it's everything from policy and planning all the way through to construction quality assurance, risk reduction, risk modeling. So there's a variety of ways in which we apply the engineering database, the base of data that we have. And this is in Spanish here too. So I'll leave this up. And then Victoria, if you want to just summarize the past couple of slides.
Sure. En las diapositivas pasadas se mostraba la capacidad global que tenemos, aquella en la que salía el mapa. Esta es una diapositiva clave ya que muestra que somos un equipo global y que tenemos, y como mencionó Elizabeth, es que tenemos diferentes oficinas para proyectos y oficinas para trabajo en sitio. Estamos localizados obviamente en conscientes del riesgo sísmico que hay en el mundo, pero también es importante mencionar que estamos pensando en cualquier tipo de riesgo, en multirriesgo se podría decir. Después tenemos la diapositiva en donde aparecen diferentes, bueno, todos los sismos a los que hemos dado respuesta, y esto demuestra al socio que tenemos experiencia de campo. Muchos de estos socios con los que tratamos están pensando en equipos USAR de rescate urbano, búsqueda y rescate urbano o de respuesta a los desastres. Sin embargo, pues no solamente nosotros, Miyamoto, tenemos la parte de la teoría, sino que también tenemos la experiencia práctica. Y no solo en sismos, sino también en cualquier otro tipo de riesgos. Y finalmente esta diapositiva, que son las áreas de especialización o de expertise, lo pueden pensar como líneas de negocios o como servicios que ofrecemos. Y esta es una gran diapositiva para mostrarles que estamos en todas las áreas y que va desde la economía de la resiliencia o planificación de políticas públicas hasta la garantía de la calidad de la construcción o ingeniería estructural y geotécnica.
Beautiful, thank you. So the next set of slides, I'm going to move relatively quickly because these are the pieces that you would customize depending upon your audience, depending upon their interests, depending upon the kinds of programs and challenges that they are facing. So the previous slides on our global capability, on our service offering, on the kind of approach to how we work and the disaster management cycle, I would say those are the core slides, the kind of key messages to make sure that you have in any presentation to kind of ground in who Miyamoto is and what our approach is. But everything after this now is really up to your judgment. And again, Lucienne will talk a little bit about the range of resources that are available. And I think the other thing that's important from this next part of the presentation is to recognize that everybody around this call has experience in different types of projects. So there may be other projects that we can pull in. Lucienne is a great resource to kind of go to say, what else have we done in this space? Are there other project profiles that I could pull? So there are resources around the team to be able to support you in really tailoring this next step in the presentation. Victoria, over to you.
Thank you. Hasta este momento, todas las diapositivas anteriores eran diapositivas generales que tendrían que estar incluidas en cualquier presentación. Está incluido quiénes somos, cómo trabajamos, y cuál es nuestro approach o cómo es que nos acercamos a cada uno de estos, de los proyectos. Y ya a partir de ahora en adelante son todas estas diapositivas las que vamos a poder pues cambiar o mover o ajustar según la audiencia, el programa y los retos que cada uno de nuestros programas tiene. Por supuesto que todos en la llamada tienen experiencia en diferentes tipos de proyectos, así que sería interesante que pudiéramos todos compartir esto, por ejemplo, con Lucien, y que Lucien pueda ser la persona en la que nos ayude a los demás en irnos guiando sobre quién podría tener experiencia en qué para irlo incluyendo en nuestras presentaciones.
Wonderful. So on this theme of recovery and reconstruction, obviously the Haiti earthquake response was a big project and a very successful project, not just in terms of the scale and size of the work that happened, but really the approach. And I think that's the key thing to highlight in terms of the work in Haiti is it was not just about flying in people. It was about building up local capacity of the engineers and really supporting the ministries in getting critical information and the donors and critical information to support the recovery and reconstruction process. Again, there are people around the call, if Ghislaine is on the call and others, Sabine, Mark, who were involved in this effort. So if you ever need more detail on programs like this was from 2010, there are resources around the table, but really critical here is Miyamoto's approach to building local capacity and investing in the sustainability of the technical resources. In Indonesia, this is an example from the Palu earthquake. A nice thing to highlight here is that we were essentially the trusted partner dispatched by the World Bank to do assessments following the earthquake. So that we are very much positioned as a global leader who is ready, available, and on call once a disaster strikes. Victoria, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yes. En esta parte acerca de la reconstrucción y la reconstruir y recuperación, uno de los grandes ejemplos es la respuesta que dimos en Haití, que fue una muy grande, muy importante, pero aquí lo más importante podría ser la manera en la que Miyamoto abordó este tipo de respuesta, que no fue acerca de traer gente, volar gente hacia allá, sino que fue construir la capacidad local para poder apoyar al proceso de reconstrucción. En la llamada tenemos a Ghislaine, a Sabine, a Bob y a muchos otros que estuvieron involucrados en este proyecto y que pueden darles más información. Y en cuanto a Indonesia, el sismo de Nepal también es un muy buen ejemplo para demostrar que fuimos confiados por el Banco Mundial para hacer este tipo de evaluaciones y por tanto estamos posicionados como un líder global, que estamos listos y dispuestos para apoyar en una situación como esta.
Wonderful. Another big area of work that has been emerging is around the economics of resilience and cost-benefit analysis. And primarily the multilateral development banks have been very interested in this for their clients to understand what is the investment profile to then take a bigger loan out for these larger investment projects. So there have been quite a few projects that we've done, the Lifelines report through the World Bank in 2019. The methodology that we put together for that cost benefit analysis has since been replicated throughout a bunch of different projects. This project in Bangladesh was sort of an upstream assessment looking at existing and planned infrastructure and advising on resilience components. In Mexico as well, with the Inter-American Development Bank, there was a lot of post-earthquake infrastructure assessment and providing analysis along that. So this whole idea of the economics of resilience and the cost benefit of resilience is an area that has been growing. Victoria.
En cuanto a la economía de la resiliencia, que es un área que ha estado en crecimiento y es un área relativamente nueva que ha estado en la mente de nuestros posibles socios y socios, trata acerca de este beneficio costo análisis. Sobre todo esto le interesa a estos bancos multilaterales con los que hemos tenido proyectos. Algunos proyectos han sido un reporte para el Banco Mundial, y en el que generamos una metodología de análisis costo-beneficio que de hecho ha sido replicada para otros proyectos. Están los ejemplos de Bangladesh y de México, México en el que trabajamos con el Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. En estos fue para evaluar infraestructura crítica y that's it.
Okay. Policy and planning. So most of you are working on projects that have this as the main component, which is really this data into decision making. So how do you use the data that we can generate to support better policy decisions, better operational decisions? And of course, the flagship work in this space has been the very successful Prepare program that you know very well, and Diana and Jaime have been with, and Sabine from the very, very beginning, to speak more about the various scenario planning tools and the way in which the risk data has been incorporated into the overall planning process. Victoria.
Yes. En cuanto a planeación y política pública, aquí esto se centra en la manera en la que usamos los datos recolectados para la toma de decisiones. Y estas decisiones definitivamente tendrían que ser mejores decisiones en cuanto a políticas públicas. Y para esto el mejor ejemplo que tenemos es el programa Prepare en América Latina, del que Diana, Jaime y Sabine están muy enterados, puesto que han estado desde el inicio. Y uno de los grandes logros, por ejemplo, es cómo incorporar el análisis de datos o los datos de riesgo, de análisis de riesgo, dentro de la planificación de las políticas públicas de la región.
Excellent. And training and risk communication is an area that continues to grow as well. Again, many of you around the table know about these efforts in Ecuador and elsewhere, community level. Corey just shared the wonderful updates coming out of the most recent training. Risk communication is an area that's growing. Some of the work in Bangladesh with the World Bank on messaging, on positioning of key information for different stakeholder groups. Again, the Ecuador Building Resilience Program, Corey and others, of course, have been involved with this from the very beginning. The kind of very focused trainings for both masons and homeowners, information that is tangible and practical. Juan also working on this, many people, the kind of manuals that have been put together, the philosophy of the training using bamboo in addition to other materials. So these are things that make us unique, that we can highlight from the very high policy level work of the kind of data to decision making prepare model to the Ecuador community level work to the economics of resilience and the cost benefit side, to the actual we are first on the ground and help post disaster with assessments and supporting recovery. I mean, it's this whole range of work that we do that makes us so unique.
En cuanto a la comunicación del riesgo y la capacitación, Ecuador es un muy buen ejemplo de esto, de cómo hemos llegado hasta el nivel comunitario. También, por ejemplo, Bangladesh, que también ahí estuvimos con temas de comunicación del riesgo. Este es un tema que ha ido creciendo y en aumento, y lo hemos trabajado en Bangladesh junto con el Banco Mundial, desarrollando cierto tipo de negocios y posicionando información clave para diferentes tipos de audiencias. Y aquí, por ejemplo, en Ecuador, fue un entrenamiento, una capacitación que fue enfocada para albañiles y dueños de sus casas. Y aquí los materiales que se generaron fueron manuales y en general la filosofía del entrenamiento es lo que nos hace únicos. Por lo tanto, tenemos un gran rango de servicios que ofrecemos desde la política pública más alta hasta al nivel comunitario, desde la economía de la resiliencia hasta ser los primeros que estamos en el sitio, tal cual en el lugar en el que nos necesitan, y es este gran rango que nos hace únicos.
Wonderful. We can go into further details, but I know that I'm running out of time. Business resilience is an area that we're moving into in private sector engagement. This is the thrust of the Indonesia program, is how do you get really private sector involved in the upstream preparedness conversation and have them look at disaster risk management and preparedness, not just for their own business, but how they link into the public response architecture and the overall disaster management architecture. So that's something that is expanding and that is particularly of interest in the Asia Pacific region at the moment. Construction and quality assurance is another area where we have a lot of products and thinking. Many of you know that the iBuild app is available that can be used for both construction quality control, during the construction process, but also has been employed post-disaster on the damage assessment side. So that's a really wonderful tool to be able to use for multiple purposes. The Myanmar project as well. Again, there are a lot of projects here, but I'll go quickly. Housing finance and upgrades. Again, Olivia can speak more to this. This is her area of expertise. The bank released a few years ago a global program for resilient housing. We did a piece looking at US and Japan experiences for them. I believe this Mexico piece was also for them. So this kind of very targeted technical work that fits within our capabilities, looking at the engineering side, but also looking at broader policy implications. And finally, as you know, anything related to the structural and geotechnical engineering, and there are many examples around that as well. Victoria, over to you.
Thank you. En cuanto a la resiliencia de los negocios, esta es un área nueva en la que estamos incursionando, tratando de también ganar el respeto, la confianza del sector privado. Esto, por ejemplo, es el enfoque que tenemos en Indonesia, que estamos tratando de que no solo los negocios estén listos para los riesgos, sino que también lo esté todos aquellos que están incluidos dentro de estos negocios. Es un área en la que estamos expandiendo en Asia Pacífico. Y en cuanto al aseguramiento de la calidad de la construcción, tenemos la aplicación, el aplicativo móvil que se llama iBuild, y esto nos ayuda a controlar la calidad de la construcción durante el proceso constructivo, pero también después de un desastre. Uno de los ejemplos aquí podría ser Myanmar, sin embargo, se fue un poco más rápido debido a que ya no tiene mucho tiempo para la presentación, así que pasó al financiamiento para las casas y esto es el área de expertise de Olivia, así que ella puede platicarles un poco más. Sin embargo, sí comenta que estamos trabajando en vivienda resiliente, en particular con el Banco Mundial, y tenemos algunos documentos o análisis que les hemos entregado, por ejemplo, la experiencia de Estados Unidos y Japón, y también la de México. Este es un trabajo técnico, altamente técnico, que hemos entregado y que podemos continuar haciendo, además de la parte estructural y geotécnica, de la cual tenemos muchos otros ejemplos.
Wonderful. And finally, the great work of Miyamoto Relief, which is the 501c3 nonprofit. The work of Miyamoto Relief sits more in the disaster philanthropy space than the international development and humanitarian assistance space. It is an important vehicle for being able to address broader challenges that maybe some of the traditional donors in the international development space are not able to pay as close attention to. And so some of the projects there, again, Sabine, Callie, and others can speak to this a bit further, working on school safety and school retrofits, the great work that's been happening with the tribes in Ethiopia, and the award-winning restoration and repair of the Gadi Baithak Palace in Nepal. And this was the UNESCO World Heritage Site. This project continues to get a lot of attention and really positioned us well with various donors in the region.
Y finalmente, Miyamoto Relief, que este CAE es una organización no sin fines de lucro, y esta cae mucho más dentro del espacio de la filantropía del desastre y no tanto en el espacio del desarrollo internacional. Sin embargo, sí es un gran vehículo para poder llegar a estos retos que son mucho más grandes, que los donantes tradicionales tal vez no estarían muy interesados inicialmente. Algunos de los proyectos, por ejemplo, son la seguridad de las escuelas, la reconstrucción de las escuelas, el proyecto que tenemos en Etiopía, y también, por supuesto, el Palacio de Gadi Baithak en Nepal, que todavía está llamando mucho la atención por el premio que ganó. Para esto pueden contactar a Cali y a Sabine, que les podrán dar mucha más información. Y bueno, esto nos ha ayudado, Miyamoto Relief nos ha ayudado a posicionarnos frente a los donantes de la región.
Wonderful. So before I turn it over to Lucienne to talk about what materials are available and how to access them, Sabine, let me know if there's anything that you would like to add.
Thank you. No, very good presentation. Thank you, Elizabeth. Nothing to add at this point.
Okay. All right. Sounds very good. So Lucienne, over to you.
Great, thank you. I will try and go through this pretty quickly so that we can have a few minutes to kind of discuss, and we would really like to hear from you about kind of how you tell our story or what kinds of questions you get from partners or clients or stakeholders, and also just, you know, what would help you and where we can save these so that they're more accessible to you. You can go to the next slide.
Lucienne, would you like me to do the translation, or you will do it at the end?
Yeah, sure. You can do it. Thank you.
Okay, let me know whenever it's.
Okay, sure. So this one quickly is just templates. We have a lot of templates that are helpful, not only so that we look uniform in our branding, but also so that you don't have to start from scratch. So as you can see, we have this presentation PowerPoint. That's sort of an overview, but we also have a blank one that you can use just so it has the branding. We have report templates in World Bank style, in just our own Miyamoto branding, as well as in USAID. So those you know, are going to be used for every single report that we create. Those are really helpful to use as a template as you're starting out to save time later on in formatting. We also have letterhead. So if you're sending out any official emails or letters or correspondence or invitations, those can be used as well. Go ahead, Victoria.
Ahora Lucien les va a presentar un poco más acerca de los recursos que tenemos en cuanto a la comunicación. Al final quisiera dejar un poco de tiempo a ella para que ustedes puedan preguntarle las preguntas que a su vez les hacen los clientes o los socios que tenemos. La primera parte son, en México les llamamos machotes o recursos que ya están hechos solamente para poderlos llenar. Por ejemplo, presentaciones de PowerPoint. Esto también nos ayuda a que tengamos una marca uniforme y que no empecemos desde cero este tipo de presentaciones. También los reportes, ya sea con el tipo de formato del Banco Mundial, de Miyamoto o de USAID, y también encabezados para cualquier tipo de oficio, de carta, de invitación o de comunicación oficial que tengan que enviar.
Okay, we also have this firm profile that we talked about in the beginning with that sort of paragraph that we're using across the board. So that's what you see in the upper right-hand corner, and we have that available on the Y Drive. I will upload it as well on Ignite if that is most useful too. So that kind of paragraph you can just copy and paste and use that for any kind of communications. We also have project fact sheets. We have success stories that are sort of a nice highlight of some of the successes that we've done, particularly in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have some case studies. So those are sort of longer around 4-page with photographs of some of the projects. And then we also have the International Development Brochure. Again, these are available on Ignite as well as on the Y Drive. It's also uploaded onto our Miyamoto International website. I'll put the link in the chat right now. And one thing to stress about the international brochure, it's about 20 pages long, and it covers similar topics to the presentation about kind of who we are and then our areas of expertise. But I want to mention that as long as you have, Adobe PDF, or you can ask me as well, you can customize this. So for example, if Elizabeth is talking to someone and they want to know specifically about what we do with private sector, she could pull out the pages. There's one page on who we are. There's one page on our experience in Asia Pacific. There's one page on our private sector expertise. So rather than sending the full brochure, she could pull out those pages and just send, a 3-pager that's customized to exactly what they're interested in. Or if she wanted to show kind of the breadth of what we do, she could also send the full brochure. So similar to the presentation, the brochure can be customized to sort of target the audience that you're interested in. Victoria.
Estos son los productos con los que contamos. Como vieron ustedes antes en el párrafo que se les mostró, tenemos el perfil de la empresa. Esto es simplemente para hacer copy-paste y usarlo tal cual como está. También tenemos por cada uno de los proyectos hojas que muestran los datos duros, datos muy específicos que podrían servir para describir un programa, historias de éxito. También tenemos estudios de caso, que son más o menos 4 hojas con fotografías. Y también tenemos el brochure de desarrollo internacional, es más o menos de unas 20 hojas. Cubre casi los mismos temas que estamos cubriendo en esta presentación, acerca como de quiénes somos y nuestro expertise o nuestra experiencia. Pero bueno, es importante que sepan que este brochure puede ser totalmente personalizado para que responda a las necesidades del socio con el que estén tratando. Por ejemplo, si ustedes tienen el Adobe, lo pueden abrir en PDF y tomar únicamente las páginas que necesitan. Y así tal vez no entregar un documento de 20 hojas, pero de 2 o 3 hojas que tenga exactamente lo que el socio necesita. Puso en el chat el link para que puedan ir a la página de Miyamoto y encontrar este documento ahí.
Thank you. Next page. This is just the table of contents with the brochure to show you kind of the pages that you can pull from to customize, but you can take a look at that later on as you have time. You go to the next slide. Other things, we've been working on some kind of infographics and visual ways to depict some of the themes that we work on. These are some examples that Olivia has worked on for the housing sector. But if you have ideas or you think that there's visual ways that you'd like to explain some of your work, I'm working on some of these with Nicole for the risk study in Trinidad. You can let me know. We have some of them, others we can create with our comms team. There's also some really amazing videos, posters, and other items that have come particularly out of Ecuador, the PASTO program, the Raju program in Bangladesh. So some of these we can sort of pull examples from, or if you are curious about this, we can send you examples and you can kind of think, how is this relevant to the stakeholders that I work with? Go ahead, Victoria.
Estos son algunos otros productos que se pueden generar desde el equipo de comunicación, infografías, videos y pósters. Por ejemplo, estos videos y pósters fueron hechos para el sector de la vivienda que lleva Olivia y realmente se trata de generar ideas de forma visual. Por ejemplo, con Nicole están haciendo esto para el estudio de riesgo de Trinidad y Tobago y también se han hecho algunos otros tipos de videos y de pósters, por ejemplo, para los programas de Ecuador, Pasto y Bangladesh. Si ustedes lo quieren o lo necesitan, se les pueden enviar ejemplos. Si es que tienen curiosidad de saber qué es lo que se ha hecho, pueden enviarles ejemplos y de ahí tal vez tomar algunas ideas para sus propios programas.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we did it.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Okay, and so just to say too, like there are so many people, as I'm saying names around different programs and people who have been involved, there have been so many people along the way. So in addition to the great resources that, you know, Lucienne has as well, there's a lot of knowledge throughout the team as these projects and programs have been implementing. So I think it's always a good conversation as you're speaking with colleagues to talk about the kinds of projects that they've worked on before as well. Obviously, Corey leading on a lot of programs now in the LAC region as well. Ginny, who's not on this call, but in Nepal, there's a lot of things happening too. So I think that one of the challenges just getting a hold of all of the information of the great work that's ongoing, and thankfully Lucienne has a lot of great tools to capture that. But if you ever have questions, you know, the team is a resource. Before we open it up to any questions, Sabine, anything that you want to add?
So in addition to also the international development brochure, we have a global brochure that also showcases our commercial work. So that's very sort of engineering, building, AEC, so architecture, engineering, construction focused. And if that is also needed, Lucienne's also the right person to reach out to for that info.
Great. Okay, so maybe Viri, back over to you if you're facilitating the Q&A.
Thank you everyone for sharing this very particular and important information in order how to approach new stakeholders specifically. I think personally that it will be very useful for us in Mexico, but now we are opening the questions and answers session. So please feel free to raise your hand and ask a question, or to type it out in the chat box so we could say it out loud and Elizabeth and Lucienne can answer you. Or also if you want to share your own experience, that will be great as well. Victoria, go ahead.
Gracias. Thank you. Yeah, I have a question. The brochure, International Development Brochure, is it also in Spanish? It would be really good to have it in English and Spanish. Mi pregunta es si el brochure de desarrollo internacional está también en español, ya que sería muy bueno tenerlo en inglés y en español.
Mm-hmm. So far, we have 2 of the pages are translated. So the page that's about Miyamoto, kind of the overview about us, is in Spanish. And then we have a page specifically on our work in Latin America and the Caribbean. So sort of what our focus there, and then some project examples. So those 2 pages are available in Spanish so far.
Thank you.
Lucienne or PD, I would like to share some few experience from Prepare Pasto related to the topic. Okay, great. Okay, what I have to say from my experience is lying with all that say today. Well, first of all, Miyamoto International is well known in engineering circles among emergency assistance entities and institutions here in Colombia, and others like this. The company is less known in other circles or environments where we have to move in different work fronts of the Prepare program in Colombia, in Pasto, such municipal entities, the community, etc. Something that seems funny to me is how the institutions or the entities, mainly local municipalities or people, change, let's say, the Miyamoto mission. I mean, some people talk about the Miyamoto Foundation, others talk about the Miyamoto Corporations, others about the Miyamoto project, etc. Of course, this is not very relevant, right? However, and this is very important to me, is that the vision that people have where Miyamoto has some kind of assistant is that Miyamoto is something or someone, a company, a corporation, foundation, whatever, but it is something that helps people or institutions before or after disaster. Speaking, for example, of the community people, the rescue groups members, with slightly more engineering-oriented persons. Miyamoto is also an institution, let's say, in this way, that improves capabilities and conditions before and after a disaster. And why do these people or entities have this picture of the company? Generally, in the initial part of our first meeting with the stakeholders or partners, I usually presented the mission of the company, the generalities, the Miyamoto's expertise, as well as the location of its office around the world, in the same way Elizabeth showed it at the beginning. But something that I really like to present in this part are photos of Miyamoto's staff assisting either before or after a disaster. For example, students working in the streets with Miyamoto's technical team collecting information on buildings, or on post-earthquake assistance, as in Ecuador or Mexico, for example. I really like to present a photo of kit with Juan Sandoval, or Chuy and Cory with their respective white helmets with company logos after the Ecuador's or Mexico's earthquakes. People are much more impacted by an image, and the message stays with them. For this reason, people in Colombia, mainly in Pasto, recognize Miyamoto as those who help people. In the same way, I would like to show Miyamoto's works with photos more than text, including the general Miyamoto's staffs in photos. And this is in part is because some of the questions asked by people who had barely heard from Miyamoto is, for example, and this is very funny, are they all Japanese? What is like to work with Japanese people? And again, a picture says more than 1,000 words. So people literally see that Miyamoto is made up of people from all over the world, right? And from many professions, not just engineers. And that is a company with many people. This gives them a feeling of closeness, and in a way allows them to work more openly. And in addition to what I have mentioned, the expertise, the about of Miyamoto, I like to highlight Miyamoto's experience and field work a lot. Of course, talking about Miyamoto's great technical capabilities, but I think that one of Miyamoto's greatest advantage is his experience, in the field, in disaster, at least in prepared and in Colombia. In Colombia, there are very good institutions or universities recognized by regionality, but only at technical level, at a theoretical level, let's say, but they don't have that knowledge that the field experience in disaster assistance and other kind of assistance gives. That is what allows, I think, Miyamoto and the PREPARE program mainly to go beyond just a seismic risk study and implement that knowledge in other types of activities. I think those are some of the things that come to my mind right now. Thanks.
I would like to add to what Jaime was mentioning, if that's okay. Yeah, so just like listening to him, it comes a question to my mind, and I guess this is the right time to ask. How would you recommend that we present, for example, in Mexico, the company? Because we reached a lot of people through Prepare, and now everybody thinks that Miyamoto does everything for free. So when we start offering, to other audiences our services, they are surprised that we charge for them. They're like, well, how come? Don't you give everything for free? What happened? And they kind of get sort of disappointed. So I would like to know somewhere like Mexico where we have the two, right? How would it be better to present the company and explaining, well, I mean, even if you explain, that this is one area, and this is another. It's not mixed in the presentation. For example, the PowerPoints of international development has nothing to do with the commercial part. So how would you suggest we combine this so people are not disappointed when we actually sell something?
Yeah, that's always quite tricky. You know, also in post-disaster moments, such as Mexico, as there's great need. So, I mean, ultimately, we're an expert consultancy, and so I think the differentiation is there that, you know, we're a implementation partner of USAID. Under USAID, we have a specific scope where we can support and partner with institutions to build greater resilience, and that's what we do on the Prepare side. Besides that, we're a consultancy and we work on these different spaces, but it's a very tricky situation. So I don't know if I could fully answer it now as we're up on the hour. You know, I really enjoyed this conversation. So just some closing thoughts, because I know we have to go, and Victoria, let's connect on that afterwards as well. Please send over your thoughts if you have any. Always would like to hear more, and also the perceptions and things that have worked for you. Thank you, Jaime, for sharing what has worked for you. It's very much in line with our brand. Kit is very much, and the Miyamoto brand is very much into like bold images, bold sentences, keeping it short. One other item, which is more of a housekeeping item on this call as well, is that we usually always internally, we can use the abbreviation MI. It makes it sometimes easier when you're writing tons of emails internally. Externally, we always use the word Miyamoto as the abbreviation, not MI. The reason being is that there are so many abbreviated companies, and Kid calls it getting lost in the alphabetic noodle soup. You know, as a kid, you ate those noodle soups with the alphabets in them. I don't know if you did, but so there's like AI, MP, so MI might get lost in the mix of that. And so more distinct, more bold, same as Jaime said, you know, images. Miyamoto, we stick with Miyamoto. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, Luciane, for showing. And thank you, Victoria, for doing a translation. You're really good at it. We do have a topic for, I don't know if you want to say something, Elizabeth, some closing remarks, so you're good.
Thanks to everybody. And again, if there's, as Sabine said, if there's follow-up questions or specific things that you want to discuss further, maybe we can compile and respond on our next meeting, or figure out a way to get back to you. We know that there wasn't a whole lot of time for discussion, so thank you.
We're really excited for the next brown bag. We already have a topic. Diana Ubico came forward. Thank you so much. Sort of to discuss stakeholder engagement. So best practices, how do we tackle this? What have we learned? Also, so she'll share experiences, and then we'll have some discussion on this. It's a very difficult topic. It's not an easy one to get right, and it's also very context specific, but there are definitely some best practices and approaches that we can all share and learn from. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.